traffic lights, look to your right and you will see a red and white striped brick building. This was originally the offices of the White Star shipping line, best remembered for the Titanic. The Titanic was a Liverpool registered ship, and many of her crew hailed from the city. Hordes of people gathered here on the morning of 15th of April 1912, awaiting news of their loved ones.
Aliska, coucou. Hello.
This area is known as Man Island. Just ahead and to your left is the recently opened new Museum of Life. The museum is a bigger and better version of the former one, which closed in June 2006. The people of Liverpool always welcome visitors to our city, and we try our best to show the world what a real Scouse welcome is all about. If you're staying with us here, then there may be a change of driver or bus at this point. On behalf of our drivers and staff, we would like to thank you for choosing to travel with Liverpool Sightseeing, and we wish you a safe onward journey.
Лошадку сними. Лошадь сними.
Ну как вам нравится? Никита, Никита, классно в автобусе? Да?
Это классно.
Seasickness, please.
We now have a stop for those of you wishing to visit the Western Approaches. Originally the strategic headquarters of the Battle of the Atlantic campaign. It is now an underground museum with a maze of rooms where you can experience the atmosphere of those war-torn days. Please check with our driver for seasonal opening times. The entrance to the museum is in Rumford Street, which is over to the right.
Не понял, там какой-то музей, что ли? Расслушай. Значит, мы еще не все музеи посетили.
In the country outside London, some 1,500 in total, covering many periods and styles. On our left is a beautiful building called Mercury Court. It is highly decorative and very distinctive in its design. Mercury Court occupies the site of the former Exchange Street station, the Liverpool terminus of the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway. The station opened in 1850, providing the city with rail links to Northern England and Scotland. The Exchange Hotel, whose neoclassical facade was retained in the construction of Mercury Court, was built in 1886. The station closed in April 1977, following the transfer of train services to the newly opened city centre underground railway system. Work commenced on the construction of Mercury Court in December 1983, with the first tenants arriving in the autumn of '86. The building was officially opened by Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret on the 7th of November 1988. As we turn into Dale Street, look ahead of you to your right and you will see a beautiful domed building which juts out into the road. This is our town hall. It was built in the 1750s. Its ground floor was originally intended as an exchange where deals were done for the many invaried cargoes which entered and exited the port of Liverpool, which of course included human cargo. The slave trade was a great source of wealth to the Liverpool merchants. The city developed rapidly, and as a result, Liverpool was the #1 slave trade port in Europe in the late 1740s. In 1235. The Victorian monument, which was built in 1901, stands in front of the courts and is a magnificent memorial. It was designed by F.M. Simpson, who became the first professor of architecture at the university here in the city. We now have a stop for anyone wishing to visit our famous Liverpool One shopping complex, which includes the souvenir shop of Liverpool and Everton football clubs.
Алиса, тихо.
We are now heading for an area which will be of particular interest to those of you old enough to remember the 1960s. No, me neither. This is known as the Cavern Quarter, which is the very heart and soul of the Mersey beat. As we turn left, if you look over to your right, the building with the brown columns has been converted into a Beatles Hard Day's Night hotel. Just past the hotel, you will manage a glimpse of the narrow street. This is Matthew Street, home of the Cavern Club, where the Beatles made 292 appearances. The original Cavern Club is sadly no more, and was in fact across the street from the new Cavern, which opened in 1984. You will notice a statue of the Beatles and an excellent statue of John Lennon, which offers you will see the entrance to the Queensway Tunnel. It's the original Mersey tunnel connecting Liverpool to Birkenhead and was opened in 1934. It was an incredible feat of engineering. It's 2.5 miles long and it took 1,700 men 9 years to build. It was the longest underwater tunnel in the world when it was built, and it cost nearly £8 million.
8 миллионов фунтов построить этот туннель.
We are now entering William Brown Street, where we will be surrounded by one of the finest collections of civic buildings anywhere in the country. The first building on the left is the Liverpool Museum and Library. With its dinosaur gallery, planetarium and natural history centre, you can take a journey through time and explore the universe in a couple of hours. The library was reopened in the spring of 2013 following the 3-year redevelopment programme. With a ticket safe, as you will have to show it to our driver each time you rejoin the tour. Looking over to our left, you will see St John's Gardens, where a church once stood until 1887. There are graves of French soldiers who were captured during the Napoleonic Wars and imprisoned here. Some of them escaped or were released, and many of them chose to stay here and married locally. There is a plaque in the garden which is written in French and English and was erected by the French government. It reads, "To her sons who died in captivity in Liverpool in 1772 to 1803, and whose bodies lay here in the old cemetery of St John the Baptist, France, forever grateful."
Я вас засниму, чтобы вас видно.
А Никита, что там просто как бы сорта открытые есть, знаешь?
We are now entering Queen Square. Immediately to your left, you will find the Royal Court Theatre, which has been at the heart of Liverpool for almost 200 years. It first opened in 1826 as Cook's New Circus, becoming the Royal Court Theatre in 1881, and has seen many famous actors such as Vivian Leigh, John Gielgud, Laurence Olivier and Yul Brynner tread its boards over the years. Please alight here for St John's Beacon. Also look over to the left and you will see the truly magnificent to those of you who have joined us here. We are now making our way to the Metropolitan Cathedral of Christ the King, which is our Roman Catholic cathedral known throughout the city as Paddy's Wigwam. It is standing on the site of what was the largest workhouse in England. It is a place of worship of the largest Catholic community in Britain. Half of England's Catholics live within the Diocese of Liverpool. A Catholic cathedral eventually became an absolute necessity for the city, and early attempts included an amazing project to build the largest cathedral in the world, designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens. The building was never...
Понятно. А вон читайте, что там написано, я не вижу.
As we get to the junction, look to your right and you will see the modern bell tower of the cathedral. Complain that the price of fame was not being able to go to the fill for a pint.
These are wet. Do you want to walk up to church?
It is also known as the institute where George Harrison and Paul McCartney went to school. The building was due to be demolished in the mid-1980s, but was rescued by Paul McCartney, and today is a fine school for those interested in a career in the theatre.
Мы с тобой здесь были.
Ага, были.
Там пришли вниз.
Там реально красиво.
Shortly on the right, you will see the magnificent Anglican Cathedral, the largest cathedral in the country. Liverpool is unique in that it's the only city with two working cathedrals. The Anglican Cathedral being the life workers' men they set up here in the city, brokering trade between Liverpool and the Far East, and this created great wealth for their communities. There is a ceremonial arch which will shortly be coming up on our left. It's a relatively new landmark for Liverpool. It was June 1952. And whilst not a working church anymore, the building is still very popular for both private and public events and holds many elaborate wedding ceremonies during the summer months. If you now look to your right, you will see the tomb of James William Mackenzie, an evil and wicked man who gambled with the devil and as a result lost his soul. Behind the walls of his pyramid tomb, his skeleton sits at a playing card table until the day of judgment looms in a...
Radio City.
Number one for Liverpool.
The North West and North Wales.
Your music.
Your life.
If you look ahead, you will see St John's Beacon, more affectionately known to locals as the Radio City Tower, home to Liverpool's biggest commercial radio station. Famously known as a revolving restaurant in the 1970s, the radio station has been the Beacon's tenant since the year 2000, following a multi-million-pound renovation. And it offers stunning panoramic views of Liverpool, the Wirral and North Wales, even as far as Blackpool and the Lake District on clearer days. This is Hanover Street, which has just undergone £500 million worth of development of the underutilised land in the city centre. It was a retail-led development and anchored by department stores such as Debenhams and John Lewis, with additional elements including leisure facilities, a 14-screen Odeon cinema, and many people were involved in the trade. Even today, approximately 60% of the world's cotton is traded under the rules developed in Liverpool. Some of the richest and most famous names in the history of the city. We are now entering the Albert Dock area. This is a complex that was registered in 1952 as the largest group of Grade 1 listed buildings in the country. The dock was designed by Yorkshireman Jesse Hartley as the world's first fireproof warehousing system, with the world's first hydraulic cranes powered from dock water pumped from what is now the Pump House Inn. The docks were opened in 1846 by Prince Albert, who said in his speech, "I have heard of the greatness of Liverpool, but the reality far surpasses the expectation." Here you will find the Maritime Museum, which has 4 floors of fascinating galleries that explore the city's maritime legacy. You'll also find Tate Liverpool here, which houses the best display of contemporary art outside of London. Over 12 million visitors have enjoyed the Tate since opening here in 1998. You will also be able to visit the Beatles Museum and be able to find out everything you ever wanted to know about the Fab Four. It's a nostalgic trip through those heavy days of Beatlemania. We have a stop here for those of you wishing to visit the Albert Dock and its many wonderful attractions.